Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathleen Drum, TIFF's Industry Director. Hello to you all, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the 2018 TIFF Industry Conference. Toronto is home to more than 230 nationalities, making us one of the most diverse cities in the world. And our openness to diversity has laid the groundwork for building a culture of equality and inclusivity, and it makes us stronger as a community. We are truly grateful to the global filmmaking community who place their trust in our city of movie lovers and who populate our lineup of exceptional speakers each year at this conference. To begin, I would like to acknowledge that today's events are taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsors and supporters who make everything that TIFF does possible. Our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oreal Paris, and Visa, and our major industry supporters, Ontario Creates and Telefilm Canada. Right now, there are three intersecting worlds orbiting the downtown hub. The world of imagination and artistry at the Toronto International Film Festival, the world of business and media at the Industry Centre, which is located in the Hyatt Regency, and the world of creative and professional inspiration in our Filmmaker Lab and our Rising Stars programs, and right here at this conference. Over the next 6 days, you're going to hear from a lineup of industry titans, acclaimed filmmakers, some of whom we haven't yet announced, so stand by for some more exciting news, experts, entrepreneurs, disruptors, innovators, and cinema legends. Introduced by our wonderful group of programmers, Karina Rotenstein, Neil McPherson, Melissa Agostino, and Dorota Leck. Those people have been working extraordinary hours to bring this conference to you, and if you could just please give them a round of applause. Right, a quick bit of housekeeping. Please remember that no professional photography or video recording is allowed inside the studio. However, not to worry, because we are live streaming the conference to our website and YouTube channel. Hello to our audiences tuning in. Please do tweet about our sessions and keep the conversation going with our online audience using hashtag TIFF18. This morning's masterclass is sponsored by Betty Ann Heggie, who is a TIFF board member and a tremendous advocate for women in the industry. Thank you so much, Betty Ann. And now we are deeply honoured to open the conference with Canadian screen icon, Métis activist and artist Tantoo Cardinal, who joins us for a conversation with Dennis Goulet. Through the conviction and the humanity of her craft, Tantoo Cardinal has elevated the authentic stories, visibility, and the voices of Indigenous people around the world. Her seminal portraits of complex characters have ignited screens over 4 decades in more than 120 film, television, and theatre projects, including Dances with Wolves and Westworld, and incredibly, she features in 4 films here at the festival. Through Black Spruce, which premieres at 8:45 tonight at the Winter Garden, Falls Around Her, which premieres tomorrow at 5 p.m. at Jackman Hall, and 2 films screening next Wednesday, the uplifting true story The Grizzlies, and gripping new thriller Hold the Dark. Tantoo Cardinal is a distinguished member of the Order of Canada and was recently invited to join the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences as a voting member. Dennis Goulet co-programs the festival's Canadian Features program. a former artistic director of the Imaginative Film and Media Arts Festival, she is also a filmmaker and has had her work screened at TIFF, the Berlinale, Imaginative, and at Sundance. She is an alumna of TIFF Filmmaker Lab and the National Screen Institute. Goulet is Cree Métis and was also recently invited to join the Academy as a voting member. Before I ask our speakers to join us, we have something very special for you, and I would like to invite the wonderful Cree singer Rosie Spence to join us on stage to welcome us all.
Pace mesue, pista manapi esque on addition one.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. That was extraordinary. And now, please join me in welcoming Dennis Goulet and Tantoo Cardinal.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello, everybody. Tonichi, thank you so much for being here. So Tantoo, this is an exciting year. You've got 4 films in the festival.
4?
4. Yeah, they counted another one. They found something else you were in.
Wow.
But I just want to start off by asking about Falls Around Her, because this is your first lead role where you're #1 on the call sheet after a 40-year career. What do you think about that?
It's 48.
48.
And those 8 years were really important. Like there was 2 jobs a year. One was radio and possibly some bit in film, eh? So it's like a relief or something. You know, not to say that I felt entitled,
Sure.
Not by any stretch, because it's a movement, it's a struggle, you know, to get our stories respected. You know, very often our stories are off to the side somewhere, and it's in our communities and little places where we love each other, you know? And now we're coming out into the open. I guess we're kind of ready.
And do you feel like this is a signal of something?
You know what? I think that was a soothsayer that I ran into at the Safeway store. She didn't know anything about TIFF, but she spotted me and she just come right over and she grabbed my hand. And she was telling me that she has 2 boys that are native, that are hers, that she's raising. And she was so grateful for the things that I've been in through the course of the years. And she said, you hang in there. There's a shift. There's a shift. You know?
Wow. Beautiful.
So we're in a shift.
That's really exciting. I also want to go back to the beginning, and I heard you once say that you can't remember anyone ever asking you what you wanted to be when you grew up. What made you want to become an actor, and when did you know that that's what you wanted?
Well, actually, when I was about 12 years old is the first time and it just like stunned me that we have a priest, a Métis priest, in our history, in our family, Father McCready. And he grew up with my grandmother. And so he knew my family. He did the service for both my mother and someone else in the family. And we were outside the church, and not very often we had church. We were kind of an isolated community in that sense, which was a saving grace. So after Mass, we were outside there, and it was spring. I can remember I had a stick, and I was poking the snow in the water and making it run while him and my granny mom were visiting. And he says to me, so what are you going to be when you grow up? I just looked at him, like, what? You know? And I could never remember thinking about that. And he went further and he said, you know, you could be a nurse. You could help your people. You know that there are nurses that fly in airplanes and go visit communities and they help people. So, you know, he knew that that was important to me, to be able to be useful in some kind of way. Mm-hmm. So to say nobody did is to say not until I was 12 did I remember anything like that. You know?
Right.
And then when I thought about it later, I thought, was that to protect me from any high hopes that I might have? Because I know when I first found this work, and it was in a moment when I was getting sick. I was getting flu. I was just kind of laying around my house. And at first I thought, well, I've got the flu. And then I wasn't feeling well, and there was no flu going around. So I thought, okay, there's something off here. There's something wrong here. And at the same time I heard this on the radio about a Native youth group at the Friendship Center. And I thought, wow, okay, I got to break out of this place. Went to the Friendship Center, met all these people in the city that I had never met, and they were all involved in doing something strong for...
And what city was this?
In Edmonton.
Okay.
And this was like, what year was that? You know, maybe 68, 69, something like that. And these were the people that were the ones who got friendship centers going, who started getting some support and backup for people that were in the city.
Yeah, and friendship centers are urban spaces for Indigenous people that are all throughout Canada.
Yeah, and then, you know, had that been in place when my mother hit the city in 1955, she might not have had to give up her baby girl. And we almost lost my brother. there was no support in the communities. And my mother had a grade 4 education, something like that, and she had a lame leg, and in a city that didn't particularly like seeing Indians in the first place.
I also want to ask you about the images that you were seeing of Indigenous people on screen or on TV, or do you remember some of the first images you were seeing?
Oh, I love this part about my growing up. I pretty much grew up in the bush, really. It was called a hamlet, and that was generous. And so I pretty much grew up in the bush. And we had the railroad that went by. And there's, I don't know, maybe once a year, the forestry would come and set up a caboose on the sidetrack. And they would bring in fire prevention movies, and we'd get cartoons and a feature with it. And this, we're bush people. There's trappers. I always remember there's a movie where there was a train coming down the track. Say, oh boy, those trappers just hit the floor. They thought that train was coming at them. But every once in a while, we take that train to Fort McMurray. And Mom would always give me some money. My granny mom would always give me money, and I'd go watch movies. A few things that were influential. One of them was I saw a movie where the code talkers were talking Cree.
Wow.
Oh.
Do you know what year that was?
Oh, my God. That must have been maybe 56, 57, maybe something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, they had movies back then. Yeah, that was really influential. And, I felt like, oh, there's something here. And so whenever I saw anything that had to do with us, it really inspired me in some kind of way. And I suppose the way that it played out for me is that I created stories by myself and my audience were the trees and the birds and the wind, and that was my friends. And
they're a very friendly audience.
What's that?
They're a friendly audience.
Yes, they were so kind and generous as an audience.
Hot tip, everybody, write it down.
They weren't Twitter folks at all. It's great.
Amazing. And then when did you actually start to begin to think that this could be a pathway for you? And was there anything in the external world that reflected that this was a possibility?
So much of this journey is just sorting through this stuff inside. All kinds of hazards in coming back from genocide. So many obstructions and blocks, and being told that I was stupid and ugly and no good for nothing and useless, and all of those things were just filled in me, So when I was walking around, that I started to tell this story where I was walking around in my house at the time that I heard about the Friendship Center, I heard, I was feeling all those things, those messages about being no good for nothing, is the way it was stated. And there was this voice that said, everyone's been given a gift. Wow, that's personal. That was not these messages, this was something else. So I started just volunteering or taking short-term contracts, just trying to find something that I could relate to. And at the same time, you know, being told no sense of responsibility, all that stuff that comes with, you know, barely being alive, in a sense, and not trusting this world, and really thinking that you really don't belong here. This is not for you. And throughout your history, you know, they're just really trying to get rid of us in every possible way. You all know that story. And then Harry Daniels, who I don't know if he was vice president of the Métis Association of Alberta at that time.
A very revered Métis leader.
Yes. Powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. Just love Harry to this day. He's in spirit now. And none of us knew that he had studied theater when he was in Florida being a groom for racehorses. And so how we found out is at the time of the CRTC coming in, the mandate to tell Canadian stories, in there was the seed, the thought that we'll hire Native people to play Native characters, you know, like, wow, it's really outside the box thinking. It really
Crazy.
was, you know?
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. And so Harry got a role, and it was a docudrama about Father Lacombe or something like that. And there's whole kinds of politics involved in that. But there was a small role for a woman to play someone who's so enthusiastic about Father Lacombe. He put my name down and another woman's name, because by that time, he had seen me stand in front of a crowd and speak, and I was involved in Native youth, and I was going, in all my trying to find out who I was, volunteering for the Voice of Native Women's Society, and really, really trying to pick the brains of the people who were moving and operating in the city and trying to make changes for us, and hear their philosophies, and hear their history, and hear everything they could possibly teach me. Because I didn't trust books anymore. That was gone. And I barely made it through high school. So that became my institute of knowledge and learning from all these people. Amazing people that you don't know any of them. And I'm hoping that I can get to writing some book and some stories that you can get to know these unknown people whose shoulders we walk on still today. Shoot.
Thank you for bringing them into the room.
Yeah. And so I went to show up for the audition, and the other woman didn't show up. So if there's any young people listening, show up. Maybe somebody missed the bus or something. And so that's what happened. And it was like a duck to water. And the other wonderful thing about it is that Vicky Crowchild from Sioux City, used to be called Sarcee Reserve, donated a dress that was 150 years old. It was just full of beads and beautiful white hide. And she lent that dress to us for that show. And I put it on, and I felt the years and the ages, and it was like I was transported back to that time. And this is me with no training, no actor training, just watching my relatives on a day-to-day basis. And watching my brother uncle coming back from the poker game, say, and my granny mom is saying, well, who's there? What's going on in the poker game? Well, he'll start out, and just the way he deals the cards, you know who's dealing, and then the way certain people pick up their cards and the way they bet, we knew exactly who was sitting around the table and how the game was going, and then Mom would know whether she wanted to put her dress on and go down there or not. So, I mean, we're just full of storytellers in our community. We had no television. We had radio, and we had forestry radio, but that was about it. And then, you know, we had this ability to communicate. Well, my grandmom sure did. You know, dreams would set her to actions of sorts. And I remember her walking around, and it just kind of falls out the side of her face that so-and-so and so-and-so were going to be come to visit. And they lived down the line, on the railroad line. And they would be coming up the trail from the tracks. And so I run to the window, it's not now, you know? 2 days later, here they come walking up the trail, and they'd gone off the train. So she got that message, somehow. And there's a lot of that clarity that the old people had in those days. And that clarity was crucial because they're bush people. If a tree fell on them, or if they ran into some kind of trouble in the bush, they'd be able to get help telepathically. I saw that as a child. I saw that world.
Wow, I love what you're talking about in terms of drawing from the world around you in such a profound way. You know, I think many people would think you have to go to years of theater school or training or all this other stuff, and you just came really literally out of the bush and used all of those amazing skills to apply it to your craft, which is incredible. And I don't think many people would know about what some of the aspects of that is.
Well, I backed myself in the corner. I didn't trust anybody, right?
Yeah.
and I
Well, I don't know what would have given you any message that you could trust it, you know?
Yeah, thank you very much.
At that time.
Yes, yes. And then opportunities fell out of the sky. So I had to work fast to catch on. And another thing that I learned from my grandmom is as soon as she would start walking through the bush to go check rabbit snares or whatever it was that we were doing, sometimes we were going to visit somebody and you took a trail down there. We didn't have much for roads. And as soon as she would get to the bush, it was like this aura of radar would be around her. And she would be absolutely aware of every nuance, of every sound, every movement, anything that happened. She would be aware. And I'm walking behind her. And this is what came back to me when I was on the film set, is bring that all in.
Beautiful.
Watch everybody. What's everybody doing? Why are they doing what they're doing? Why are they telling me this and that and the other thing? You know? So kind of learning the tricks of the trade that way, through the only way I could trust, through the energetic form of creative force. And that's what brought me to today.
I love what you're saying, Tantoo, because also it's almost as though you were completely unapologetic that your method was coming from who you are as an Indigenous woman, as a Métis woman, and that you did that right from the start. So that's so inspiring to hear.
Well, you know what? It did have its difficulties.
Of course.
I remember being trying to be in this show, a theater piece, and there were about 5 or 6 of us, and we had to be in unison and doing all this kind of stuff. And it's like my method of working is almost like backwards to people who went to theater school. They had a certain process, and they had to have this done, and then this done, and this done. And this was at the time where I was pretty much, I had the grok method. You know, walk in and, okay, what do I got to know, and what do I have to learn, and I think it was so aggravating for these other actors, and I was picking up their vibe. They hated me, and they didn't know I could hear them, going wah, 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 wah. And so I just decided, you know what? I don't have to do this. I really don't have to do this. The only reason I was doing it is because it wasn't necessarily Native, and it was just a woman, and I was bringing a lot of my life experiences in, and I was contributing to the collective, and then all this blah blah was happening, and I just decided I'm out of here. And then they called break. I started going downstairs, and I thought, I was just trying to decide, am I going to tell anybody? I better tell them I'm leaving. I was arguing with myself down the stairs. And then, for the first time, on the wall, I see two masks. And boom, it took me to a necklace that my sister aunt gave me on my 10th birthday. There were two masks on this brass necklace, and I was just fascinated with them. I would just look at them for a long time, and I asked her, what is this? I don't know, she said. And so I knew those masks were significant. So I got one of the theater staff, and I knew it was a stupid question. And I knew it had to be asked. And I asked her, I said, what are those masks? Oh, she was so excited that I asked. And she's telling me these are the Greek masks of comedy and drama, and telling me this history of these masks. And in that moment, I knew I had to be here, that I belonged here. And if they didn't like it, well, they're going to have to find some way of dealing with it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want to play a clip by one of your early films called Loyalties, directed by Anne Wheeler,
Yes.
which was a film in which you got a really substantial role quite early in your career. So if we could play the clip, that would be great.
Yeah.
How many credits you were in to like, what credit was that for you?
I think I was 3. Yeah. What do you mean credit?
Like, how many films or TV had you done before that?
Oh, I don't know. I'd never played that substantial of a role, I don't think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to find all that out when I start writing my book.
But you were a co-lead. You were a co-lead on this film.
I was what?
You were co-lead.
Co-lead, yes. Yeah. And interestingly enough, and Anne could tell you the story about the difficulty of when there's male producers. Sorry, guys. But they wanted the film to be about the husband and wife. So that's what they were doing with the editing. They were trying to make it the husband and wife, and that film was not happy. And so Anne brought in a woman. Yay! And she cut it together as a story between the two women. And then the film was happy.
And can you tell us anything about your experience of being, because if that was a big deal for you, did you feel the pressure, and what was that like?
I didn't have an overtime clause. So, again, young people, doesn't matter if you got hardly any experience. Get that overtime clause. Oh, man. My baby turned 6 months on the day that film wrapped.
Wow.
And I was getting fresh actors being brought to me all day long until wrap, just fresh actors. It was so exhausting. And so I was terrified of the result. And I had no idea what that was, because that's another project I felt like, oh man, okay, I'm leaving. And then I realized that I couldn't walk out in the middle.
And what do you do in moments where you feel like you're just at your wit's end, that it's over? Because I think any one of us working in different industries and structures have those moments where you're always pushing up, or maybe you're the only one. What keeps you going in moments like that?
I have to go back to the source and have respect for what people are doing, because everybody's putting their heart into it. And because I'm having a hard time for whatever reasons, it doesn't give me the right to sabotage their efforts. So I went back to the source and remembered that I'm here for a purpose, and I don't even understand most of it, but I've been blessed with this opportunity, and I will make the best of it, and creative force energy will help me. And that's what happens. So, and then I just left, and then I was, much later, however long it took to cut the film together, I was driving down White Avenue, and the sound recordist, my old friend Gerald Clark, sees me driving by with my windows down. Hey, I saw a cut. It was great. Oh, okay.
And how did you feel when you saw it?
I was so proud of the film. I was so proud of the film. That film was a little warrior. It affected people in such a profound way. It was at a time when the issue of abuse, molestation, all of that kind of stuff was trying to come out of the closet, was trying to reach the surface. And so this film was one of those energetic things that helped pop it to the surface, certainly in that community. And I remember we had a screening there, and one of the elders from that community got me up to dance, and he was saying, you know, that goes on around here all the time. I don't know what we think. We think it's just going to go away by itself. And then what that community did, Lac La Biche, in their community college, they started these circles, these healing circles. And they started reaching people that had that experience. And everywhere that film went in the festival circuits, I remember in Montreal, after the screen, we were waiting for the Q&A, and this woman comes up, and she was just devastated. And she's saying, what can I do? What can I do? My father, my brothers, she said.
Wow.
And when I was being hosted and taken around the festival, my host told me about their women's organization, and they had cells for different issues. And they had a cell that for people who had been sexually abused and molested. And there I saw her. She was just not far away. And so I was able to connect this woman to her. And so, you know, praise be, I don't know how things went, but there is some place that she could go. It's so important what people are doing in the communities, you know, to open these issues up and for particularly young people to be able to share that, but also people in my generations, a lot of it hasn't been dealt with, you know. But thank goodness the Truth and Reconciliation Commission has brought a platform and brought a truth out.
Yes.
And people don't have to sit in the dark private about it, you know. Now it's out there.
Yeah. And there's also the Me Too movement that has brought a lot of visibility lately, but I always find it so important to remember how long, you know, starting to talk about this has been going on. I also want to play a clip from a little tiny film called Dances with Wolves.
Oh, that little ditty.
Yeah, that little ditty. Just because it was such a large Hollywood film. And I think Hollywood has not been kind to our people. And this would have been, you know, your intersection with Hollywood. And so, yeah, we'll play the clip and then talk about it. You and, of course, Graham Greene. What I love about that scene is the love and tenderness and the human relationship that you see on screen, which would have been actually quite rare at that time.
And in films in general. I mean, how many historical pieces have I done? And it's so hard to get that reality in where it's the woman who sees what's going on all over. And a part of the tradition in the culture is if you're approaching the chief, you'll have to go through one of his wives, you know, and probably the key wife, the one that's closest to him, to bring forward an agenda. And that You know, it is so nicely understated. That's nice. Thanks
a beautiful
for showing that.
scene.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
So tell us about the experience of working on this huge Hollywood production and what that was like for you. And then also later when the film was released and became this huge smash that won Oscars and all of that.
Yeah, you know, I think probably the most exciting thing about that movie, and probably the key to its success, is that Kevin and Jim is a producer, and he was acting as a line producer, I guess, and J.G. Burtz was a producer on that as well. Oh, what an amazing man. He's in spirit as well. That Kevin learned about our people we had 250 people in our extras camp, our community. And I always remember him working with the 3 little boys. And it was like a moment, from what I observed, it was like a moment of, oh, these are human beings. Wow. You know, and something happened for him. And so the camera started following them more. He started shooting more into the community. And so, well, of course, he could put his paycheck in there, eh? 40 mil, yeah, let's go shoot over here now. And that's a nice little advantage. Hey, Jamie. And and so the editor had all this footage to work with when it came time. And I lost about 8 scenes in that movie, and I was really happy to lose them, because the original script was a relationship between those 2. And then in the cutting, it became a love affair with the community. Isn't that exciting?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I remember being a young person I think I was in Regina at the time, and the buzz around the film was incredible. And, you know, it really felt like it was a moment where, you know, it was the first time we were seeing us as human beings. And it may not have been the very first time, but that really stuck out in my memory.
Yeah, it was so beautifully shot. There was so much love put into it. And we were the recipients. I think it really impacted a lot of people in our community.
And did you have any mixed feelings going in just because you weren't totally sure what this was going to be, or was it exciting from the start?
Oh my God, it was magic.
Wow.
I've shared this story before. I suppose it's okay. I was living in LA at the time, and just decided, you know what, there is a SAG group that's Native American, and I heard that they were having a meeting that Sunday, so I thought, well, I'll go there. And I had been traveling all over Canada that summer, and everywhere I went, people were in circles. We were sitting on the ground. We were in circles, and circles and circles and circles. And so here we are, and there was a little stage like this, and there was a row of 3 chairs there. There were hardly, you know, not all that many people there, about 25 people maybe at the most. And I just had this impulse, let's not do the stage thing. Let's put our chairs in a circle. Boom, 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 went in a circle. We had a great little meeting. I didn't know that the casting director for Dances with Wolves was there.
Wow.
And Kevin had told her that to look for my character. And what Kevin told me at the Oscars is that he wanted to cast the role of the woman first, because he wanted to find somebody who the audience would feel confident in when everybody left to go to war or to go hunt. And so that's what she was looking for that day. And then me going in there and organizing, everybody just fell right in, you know. Had I known, I'd probably just tightened right up and sat in the corner. But I didn't know. My creative force knew. And so that was great. then the issue of language came up, and they wanted to use, what was that? Shoshone, I think. And I was suggesting maybe Lakota, because there's all these materials that are in Lakota. There's books, and there's languages, and there's tapes, and all of that kind of stuff. And I did my audition in Cree. And that really worked well, as you know. Boom, boom, boom. It was fun. Sorry, excuse me. And then, so there I was in my backyard, in a lawn chair, in LA, reading the script. And I fell asleep. I woke up, and this was around noon. I look up, and there were stars. I could see stars all over the sky. And I thought, this must be an extension of a dream or something. I thought, well, I'll blink and they'll be gone. They were still there. And it was magnificent magic. And that was one of the things, as well as the energy, that I could feel that this was really important. This was really significant, what was coming down. So that kind of kept me steady through the course of this long, arduous shoot.
Yeah.
Because by that time, you know, I would look at what was in the script and what we were shooting, and very often the energy of the story will be what you're moving through.
Yeah.
So I felt that there's so much positive energy in this. This is going to be a great shoot. It was so hard. There were egos involved. There was the issues that we have inside of us. You know, people terrified that you're going to take their focus or their light, or, you know, there was so much of that going on. It was really hard territory to traverse. But there were some really, really good people, and who really knew their business and loved what they were doing. And so there was all this balance stuff going on through the course of it. And of course, having small children, and
Sure.
It's just, wow, I don't know if I'd do it again, you know?
We're almost out of time because you've been telling so many wonderful stories, but I do want to go to the audience to see if there's anyone dying to ask a question. I see a hand up at the back. Oh, just wait for the mic. Thank you.
Hi, Tantoo. My name's Lisa Langwan. I've been a fan all my life of you. So I just hope that one day someone or you will do a film based on your life.
I hope what?
One day someone or you will do a film based on your story and your life.
I don't know about a film, but I'm sure going to try and get some writing done. And I just started my own project this summer, going back to my home community and getting some oral history to begin with, and because I can get to the paper history later. And so I'm just starting out on that journey now. Love it.
Any other questions? Yeah, right here really wants to ask a question.
Congratulations, Tantoo. It's wonderful hearing you speak about energy and your connection with nature. I am curious to find out your process when you connect to that life source. How does it channel through all your energy centers? Can you maybe provide a few insights about it, especially for the actors here?
One of my things is connecting with the source, and that is, we're light, and getting accustomed to all our chakras and trying to get that energy moving. But my little kind of homemade recipe is the light that we are, being tendrils, going through the layers of Mother Earth until that light that you are touches the fire at the core of Mother Earth. And when that connection happens, you feel it in your heart. And then somewhere where the source is in the beyond, you bring that light in to that place that was soft when you were a baby. Bring that light in. Oh, hey, all over, all through your system, and you can talk it through. You can talk it through all those places. Are there any obstructions, whatever? And you get it right all the way through to it meets that light that's at the core of Mother Earth. And encircle yourself in that light and ask that what doesn't belong to you goes back in a good way. So you have this place in the midst of that, that's a clean place, that connects you to whatever it is that we have in the universe. So that's what I try to remember to do, especially when it gets really sticky and energy gets kind of all over the place. And sometimes, you know, we don't really know how our energy is affecting people sometimes. I remember working with a new director, a very young director, very powerful, very strong energy. And she was so worried about her film. Oh, and his, and that I was in my green room focusing on this, but the thoughts kept on interrupting my work because of the worry. And so that really helps, that method to kind of build your little room with the light and
Beautiful.
the energy. But what reminded me, one of my favorite little stories that I have to tell you, as soon as I felt the fire at the core of Mother Earth, I want to share with you one of my favorite translations that was given to me again by a dear brother who is in spirit now, is that the Cree word for fire is eskoteo. And it's made up of two words, esko, which means woman, and mete, which means heart. So the Cree word for fire is woman's heart. And the stories of creation go back and they talk about the fire at the core of Mother Earth. And is it any wonder that our language was outlawed, eh? Don't want the power taken away from...
So we are out of time, but before we go, I want to just play a final clip from Falls Around Her, which is your first leading role, and I feel like that's the best way to take us out. So please come see Falls Around Her, directed by Darlene Naponce. So we'll play the clip. Thank you.
We still in March?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Tantoo Cardinal, Dennis Goulet.
Producers, applause around her. Please stand. Winners of the... Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful way to start the conference. Thank you so much. And please stay tuned. At 11 o'clock, we'll be talking about theatrical exhibition. So go get a coffee and come back in, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.